is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I'm your host, Josh Harris. We have ourselves a slate here tonight. I don't know how else to describe it. It is quite the festival. But yeah, joining me as always, Slim Cliffy. How was your weekend?
Good, pretty good weekend. Just didn't really do like a whole lot. There's hockey all day Saturday, like that pretty much wipes out your Saturday, right? And then now that the NFL's done, there's hockey all day Sunday. So 48 hours of hockey pretty much. No, had a good weekend. Watched the Bruins and St. Louis Blues last night. I don't think Boston's a bad team or anything. I think it's getting to the point where you can see it's a mistake they didn't go get a center. I like Charlie Coyle. I like Pavel Zacha. The thing is like you can get away with not having a great center as long as you have wingers that can carry them. And of course they have David Pastrnak, but I don't think Brad Marchand at this stage of his career can carry a line. Jake DeBrusk can't carry a line. James Van Riemsdyk at 36 or 37 can't carry a line. Trent Frederick can't carry a line, so on and so forth. Like they can put together one pretty good line wherever Pastrnak is. After that, they kind of get in a little bit of trouble. Like they're going to make the playoffs, and when you have the goaltending that they do, you can go deep. But I don't know, man. They look like they're in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, the center market was kind of crap at the deadline, though. So, like, who are they going to go get? Like,
yeah, I meant more last summer. Like you knew Bergeron and Krejci weren't coming back. Like you knew Marchand, I think he's a year younger than us. So he's 37, 36, something like that. Like he's not at the stage where 5 years ago, he might've been able to carry a line. He can't do it anymore. Like they knew this was going to be a problem back in the summer. And I think that's really started to show through over the last 5-6 weeks here.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder if they thought they were going to be rebuilding and they didn't expect to be in this position. I mean,
that's it too. You have McAvoy, you have Lindholm, you have the great goaltending, you have Pastrnak. Marchand's still good. He's just not good enough to carry a top 6 line in the playoffs, I don't think. There's still enough to get to the playoffs, which I think is why they didn't go and get a big time center. I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens. Like the East is kind of wide open, right? Florida and Carolina look like they're pretty good. Igor playing the way he is, I think you have to give it up for the Rangers. Like after that, it's like the Flyers, the Lightning, the Red Wings, the Leafs. There's not a lot that really scares me. Certainly not like the Western Conference.
No. I'm trying to think of teams that could be dangerous. Like if the Islanders sneak in, they've been pretty good defensively. I don't know. I mean, they're probably going to make it. I don't think the Wings are going to make it, but
I think the Islanders are a good call because they have been a lot better defensively, way better defensively under Patrick Waugh. The top line can score. We know how good Sorokin is. Hockey's random enough that you can make it a conference final run with a month of great goaltending and a great top scoring line. That's really all you need to make it to win a couple rounds. Win the cup, I don't think so. A couple rounds, sure.
Unless you go white hot like Bennington did, and he was just
but they actually had a good team. Once they hired Craig Berube, who's now fired. It's really funny how that works.
$20 super chat from Clayton Eskew. I probably butchered that name, but I want to say it Eskew, so that's going to be your name, Clayton. Thank you for the super chat. Says this will not be easy. No, it won't. But that's why we get the big hairy bucks that we can take to Starbucks. Harry Bucks. I'm a mess.
We're off to a great start here, folks.
Don't want to derail. How about that Dustin Poirier KO? Was a very nice KO. Looked like Benoit Saint Denis kind of gassed from that infection he had on his head, which is surprising that they let fighters fight with staph infections that are visible to the doctors on your head. But anyway.
Is it surprising?
No.
Okay. And yeah, thanks a lot for the super chat, Clayton. it might not be easy, but Josh and I were talking before the show. Like, it's not like Saturday there was that San Jose Ottawa game. Obviously, anybody that stacked that, you were screwed, myself included. It's not like there's one game where like it's a clear outlier. Like, these are two bad teams playing each other, and maybe one team's has a good offensive game, pops 6 or 7 goals. Like, there's a lot of bad spots here tonight. So I think in that sense, you're not compelled to play any one team, which I kind of like those slates where it's not like Colorado's at home to San Jose and you're like, oh, well, am I going to play a $26,000 Colorado line? Like, or like try to fade them and hope something else hits. Like, there are a lot of good spots, which I think makes it a little bit easier in a way.
Yeah. It's not just one awful chalk spot. There are a plethora of awful chalk spots that we'll get to. So we should probably get into this slate. Before we do, just want to say thank you guys so much for the support with the affiliate signups, the super chats, the likes, the shares, the banter, all that. You guys are a very good community. I didn't want to say good. I wanted to say wholesome was the word I wanted to use. Very wholesome community. And yeah, we're here for you. We're here for us. But, we want to help you. And let's get into this. Let's start with a 6.5 total. For some reason, the Detroit Red Wings with a 3.1 total. Heading into Buffalo, the Sabres have a 3.4 total. Like, Buffalo's not that far out of a playoff spot. They have a good 5-on-5 team, and they are uncorking these lines tonight. Tage Thompson, Alex Tuck, Zegmis Gurgleshits that we call him, Dylan Cousins, Jordan Greenway, Zach Benson, then Skinner, Peterka, and Peyton Krebs. Not quite sure what Don Granato's going for there. Do you know?
Well, you said Buffalo's not that far out of a playoff spot. Like, they're not all that far, but they are 7 points back with more games played than everybody else. So, like, they probably have to get 30 points in the next 17 games to get a push. What are you doing? To get a push into the playoff spots. But yeah, they're not a bad 5-on-5 team. I was looking at the 5-on-5 numbers earlier. Then I'll get back to you in a sec. I just want to mention that since January 1st, Buffalo's played 27 games. Their expected goals against and their actual goals against at 5-on-5 are virtually identical to Winnipeg's. And we know how good defensively they have been. Like, the difference of in expected goals is like 0.05 every 60 minutes and virtually identical actual goals against. Buffalo's troubles have come on special teams, and we'll get to that in a second. But at 5-on-5, this has been a very good defensive team for months now.
Yeah. I mean, they really have been. And, like, I know that because I've burned a good portion of my bankroll stacking against them. You live and you learn. Live, laugh, love. But anyway, on this slate in particularly, this is a 6.5 total. There's not a lot of ownership. And to be honest, I don't have a ton of interest in these top sixes. Like, who are we kidding? Dylan Larkin's out. Like, I don't want to play top line JT Compher. I didn't like JT Compher in Colorado. I'm not going to like him in Detroit. Joe Veleno, Lucas Raymond, Jonathan Bergen, Cop Perron, Rasmussen. Like, these lines do not interest me at all. If you want a one-off DeBrincat, you want a one-off Kane, that's fine. Like, I don't think I'll be full stacking anything on the Detroit side. On the Buffalo side, like 6.3% Buffalo 1 negatively leveraged Zegmis Gergensons. Like, no. Like, I think line 2 is okay. Cousins, Greenway, Benson, but they're 11-3 coming in 5x their top 2 stack percentage. I think, if anything, the one line that I would play here is Skinner, Peterka, Krebs. One, they're 12-4. They're coming in at 1% ownership, and they're going to get bottom 6 matchups of Detroit. And it's non-existent. It's a good matchup. Like, Peyton Krebs is kind of Casey Middlestat from 2 years ago. You're kind of wondering, is this guy still going to be in the NHL in a couple years, but he could turn into a Casey Middlestat type deal. He's min price, I think. Peterka is a volume shooter. Skinner has had not the best season, but these guys going into like Perron, Kopp, and Rasmussen or Raymond, Veleno, Jonathan Bergen don't scare me. And they're 1% and they're 12-4. And there is need for a line that cheap if you're looking to spend up for the Colorados, for the Minnesotas of the world. So I don't mind that Buffalo 3 line at all. If you want to play Buffalo 1, Buffalo 2, fine. Like, I think I would still prefer Buffalo 2 to Buffalo 1. Like, Gergensons doesn't do anything, and I'm not even 100% sure like he'll make it through the first period there. Wouldn't shock me to see Victor Olofsson up there, which doesn't make it better. So, like, Buffalo 3 is my favorite line in this game.
Yeah, I won't go too long on Detroit. I don't have any interest in stacking them. The top line, 1.9 expected goals, 1.6 actual goals per 60 minutes together. That should tell you how bad that they've been without Dylan Larkin. He is he's the only good center, at least offensively. So, and we just talked about how good Buffalo has been at 5-on-5. And on top of that, this is a good transition to Buffalo. I will say, we don't know exactly what the Detroit lines are going to be. This team has lost 5 in a row, and they've been getting their brains beaten. Those losses include 4-0, 7-2, and 4-0. So they haven't had a practice that I've seen. I was looking for line combinations. I haven't seen anything from any of the beat writers. I suspect that the lineup's going to change, but I don't know what they would change to that would actually interest me. So I'm out on Detroit entirely. I wrote a Buffalo 3 in the picks article, free to read over at Stokastic.com every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. With Peterka and Skinner together, 35.3 shots, 2.7 expected goals, 6.3 actual goals per 60 minutes. Very high shooting percentage. The thing is that if they weren't shooting, like, I think it's 16%, if they were just shooting like 9%, they would still be scoring like a full goal above the league average. So, like, they have been very, very good. And I looked at the centers that they played with. It hasn't been much with Tage Thompson. So I think they can fit in well enough with Peyton Krebs. One thing I will say, I was talking to a Buffalo fan actually on Twitter earlier today. Somebody I've known for a long time, and I respect his opinion about the Sabres. He says he thinks Jeff Skinner's playing through an injury. And, that kind of concerns me. But Skinner and Peterka, with Jack Quinn hurt, are this team's 2 best offensive players. There are only 3 players left on this roster whose points per 60 at 5-on-5 are above 2, and 2 of them are on this line. I really like Buffalo 3 as a filler. Hearing that Skinner might be injured kind of worries me, but it's the Detroit bottom 6, man. Like, there is nothing that can prevent this line from generating. So I really do like Buffalo 3 as a filler. I will mention with Buffalo 1, like, Gergensons is a really bad offensive player. Like, think Jordan Greenway with less skill. Like, that's kind of how I'd approach it. But he's really, no, it's not. But he's really good defensively, and that's worth something. It's not worth a lot in DFS, but if they can prevent Detroit from really creating anything and just kind of keep up the pressure and the puck going back down the other way, like, repeatedly, that's not bad for Buffalo's top line. I don't really hate playing Buffalo 1 just because I don't think a lot of Detroit, like this Detroit team is bad.
Very bad.
Detroit is tied with Columbus by expected goals against per 60 since the All-Star break. Like, take out Detroit and put in Columbus Blue Jackets, and then think about how you might approach the Buffalo Sabres tonight. Like, that's kind of how I would look at it. Buffalo 3 is my favorite line. I think Buffalo 1 is playable just because Gergenson's, he's not a black hole. He can help defensively. And if anything else, he'll get the puck going back up towards the offensive zone, and that's worth something. But it is Buffalo 3 I like in this game. So Buffalo 3, Buffalo 1, that's it.
Yeah. Clayton doing the Lord's work says coach's statement has DeBrincat, Comfort, Kane, and Bergen, Veleno, Raymond. So not really surprising there. Yeah. New York Rangers with a 2.5 total. Heading into Carolina, the Hurricanes have a 3.1. I was just looking on Twitter. Jake Gensel just got activated off IR. It doesn't mean he's going to play, but he's skated line rushes this morning. He's probably going to play. He's going to be on a line with Evgeny Kuznetsov and Martin Necas. That's kind of odd. And I want to get your take on that line in a second. Like, that's just a weird line to me. No line in this game is getting over 0.6% projected ownership, and that is Carolina 1. The way Carolina matches up at home, right? Stall line is gonna see Zibanejad, Crowder, Roslovic. Zibanejad scoring his first. Yeah, teams have been doing that. I don't know why. Okay, we'll just assume it's either going to be Zibanejad or Trocheck. We'll just work out right there, right? Zibanejad scored his first 5-on-5 goal since like December, I think, last night. I think it was December.
Yeah, first 5-on-5 goal in 31 games.
36. Just brutal stuff from Zibanejad. But okay, the reason that's important, right? And because they want to send out Aho, Svechnikov, Teravainen against middle six matchups. Gensel, Netchis, Kuznetsov probably also going to see those middle six matchups, and that makes me nervous. I don't think that's going to be a good defensive line. And like, that's why I kind of am curious who the Stall line is going to take, because if Kuznetsov, Gensel, Netchis is going to see the Panarin line at all, or the Zibanejad line at all, I would have a little bit of interest there on the Rangers. Not in single entry, but like in MME at that ownership, it could be sneaky. On the Carolina side, like, this is going to sound homerish, and there's no other way I can present it, even if I'm not being homerish, which I'm not. When Igor's playing this well, I don't really want to stack against him. Rangers back-to-back on the road. If anything, it would be that Aho, Svechnikov, Teravainen line at 0.6% at 18,000. There's other lines in that range that I'd rather play in single entry, but in MME, if they get into your mix, that's fine. Like, I just don't love stacking against Igor in this matchup. That Gensel, Netchis, Kuznetsov line, whew, that is confusing to me, and I want to get your take on it. What do you think about that line?
I think as long as they shelter them, they'll be fine, because I don't really think there's a good defensive player on that line. But if you're facing third and fourth lines mostly, which I think is what's going to end up happening, I don't think there's any reason of a concern, because they are all pretty good offensive players. Like Kuznetsov, we'll see how things go long term. If nothing else, he was still a good playmaker when he was in Washington. It was just there's two problems. One, they were often using him against top lines for whatever reason. They refused
with Ovechkin.
With Ovechkin. They refused to use Dylan Stromer, and sometimes they'd use Nick Dowd, but that was about it. Otherwise, it was Kuznetsov, and I don't know why they were doing that. But he had good playmaking numbers besides that. Jake Gensel, not a good defensive winger, but obviously a very good scorer. Martin Necas, kind of like a dual threat offensive guy, not great defensively anyway. But again, if they're getting bottom six matchups, I think they're going to be perfectly fine. I honestly don't have interest stacking either side of this game. I think I'm kind of with you. Carolina's goaltenders have honestly turned, like Kochetkov mainly, has really turned a corner basically since the middle of December. It's been 3 months now of like at least good goaltending. And as we always say with Carolina, they don't need elite goaltending. They just need goaltending that won't lose them games. And they're not going to allow very many. And they haven't been allowing very many. While you were talking, I was looking up how Toronto matched against the Rangers when the Rangers were in Toronto last weekend. They basically split Matthews between the top two lines. So I don't think we're going to have any clear indication until this game is over how things are going to go. But like either way, Carolina's penalty kill has been so good that it takes away a big weapon from the Rangers, right? Like one of the reasons why we do stack the Rangers is because generally speaking, their power play has been very good this year. It's gone through its dips, but most power plays do. If you take that away from them, it's like, can the Rangers Panarin line get there at 5-on-5? Like, that's asking a lot. Like, can the Kreider line get there at 5-on-5? It's like, sure, they can, but I think there's a pretty good reason why you're seeing them with a 2.5 total, which it's the second lowest road team tonight besides the Sharks.
The second lowest total on the slate.
On the slate besides the Sharks. So no, I don't have a lot of interest in the Rangers. With Carolina, like, I think it would probably be the Gensel, Natchez, Kuznetsov line, more because you pretty much know what you're getting from Carolina 1, which is like a good offensive line, but they haven't been elite. They've needed the power play to really do it, but the power play honestly hasn't been good for a while, which I think is why you've seen Kuznetsov take a top power play role with Mike Bunting gone. So it's almost like I'd rather take the unknown than the known quantity here. So I would probably go to Gensel, Natchez, Kuznetsov. But again, I don't have a lot of interest in this game overall. Like this game kind of screams like 3-1 either way with an empty net or something like that. So like I'll always say like games like this, I think I would, if you want a one-off Jack Roslovic because he's still under 4K, I think that's fine. If you want a one-off Martin Natchez because his price is still very reasonable, it's under 6K, I think that's fine. If you want a one-off Seth Jarvis, at 5K on DraftKings, I think that's fine. I just don't know about full stacking any single line.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I do worry a little bit, like the unknown is unknown, right? But if they do send him out bottom 6 and they see that third line, I think Wenberg, Kakko, Cooley are going to end up being a pretty decent third line. But again, like on this slate, it's not really necessary in single entry to get that create. Like, be like, oh yeah, Jake Gensel's back.
I mean, if I know this slate's kind of wide open, I don't think playing Alex Wenberg on the road in Carolina it's that wide.
Oh, no, I wasn't talking about playing Wenberg. I'm just saying like going into the Wenberg line isn't as good of a matchup as people think it is.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I'm crazy, but I'm not that crazy. Maybe. Columbus Blue Jackets with a 3.2 total. Heading into Montreal, the Canadiens have a 3.3 total. Montreal 1 is 18K, the same price as Carolina 1, right? Anyway, they're coming in negatively leveraged, 13.7% top 2 stack, 15.2% projected ownership. Like, that's not awful negative leverage. It's a 10-game slate. And this is a very good matchup at 5-on-5 and a very good matchup on special teams. Now, since Monahan has gone away, the power play isn't as good. But since Newhook has gotten there, it's stabilized a little bit. It's not great, but the Columbus penalty kill is god-awful. So I do really like Montreal 1 here. There was a question if Slavkovsky was going to play. Martin St. Louis said he's playing. I like Montreal here. I like the top line. I do like the second line too, but they're under 10K. And they're coming in also like 6X their top 2 stack. Like I think you don't need to full stack there. I think a one-off Newhook is fine. If you're looking to stack Colorado 1, which we'll talk about later, it looks like Nishushkin's going to be on line 1. That makes Colorado like almost 26K. Like, yeah, there's only a handful of lines that will fit with them. This being one of them, that's fine. But like, if you're not spending up for Colorado 1, I don't think I'd full stack Montreal 2. So Montreal 1 for me. On the flip side, I don't know how Yegor Chinnikov is going to replace Roslovic. I think it will be okay. Like, I like Chinnikov's game. The issue is the coach doesn't really like Chinnikov's game. That dude gets benched so often.
It is funny. It's funny because he got benched and healthy scratched, I think. Or no, Marchenko got healthy scratched. Chinnikov got benched for two periods or something. And then I saw an article today about the head coach praising Yegor Chinnikov's game. I was like, are we talking about the same guy?
Yeah, like I think that line will be fine. Like,
yeah,
I don't think Chinnikov has the speed Roslovic has, but like I think the top line will be fine. They're getting negative leverage as well, and I don't love that. Like the Suzuki line is the only line that's like decent defensively. They have been slipping a little bit. So like I think Columbus 1's fine. In single entry, I'd rather play Montreal 1. I think the Columbus line that I'm looking at is honestly Nylander, Sillinger, Texier.
There we go.
Fuck. Because they're coming in with not much. They're coming in under 1% projected at 11-6, and they're going to get bottom 6 matchups of Montreal. If we're going to target bottom 6 matchups of the Red Wings, we're going to target bottom 6 matchups of the Canadiens, and they've been good. Nylander's ice time has gone way up since Roslovic got traded. Texier has been pretty good. And, Cole Sillinger is Cole Sillinger, but that line's 11-6. If you want to go to Marchenko, Voronkov, Trey Fix-Wolansky, fine. Trey Fix-Wolansky has been tearing up the AHL. I think he's a tweener between the AHL and the NHL. One of those, 4A guys, you know what I mean? So I'd much rather go play Nylander, Sillinger, Texier. That's probably the line I prefer the most on Columbus and Montreal 1 for Montreal.
Yeah, Trey Fix-Wolansky, he's wearing an Emil Bemstrom mask is basically what's going on here. Montreal 1 is my favorite line in this game. You mentioned their ownership. I wrote about them in the picks article. 15 games since the All-Star break, 3.4 expected goals per 60, 3.7 actual goals per 60. Columbus 26th in the league by expected goals against. Montreal's top line all plays on the power play. They typically all play over 20 minutes a game. I really do like Montreal 1. They're going to go out against the Jenner line. I was looking at Chinnikov's and Gaudreau's numbers together at 5-on-5. Defensively, below average, as you'd expect. 2.8 expected goals against per 63, actual goals against per 60. Columbus penalty kill, second most goals against per 60 minutes since the All-Star break, second most goals against going back a month before that. So a pretty bad penalty kill for a while now. So I really do like Montreal 1. Montreal 2, I think, would be the filler on that side. Their numbers are kind of falling off a little bit, but they're still scoring. They're not creating a lot of quality, but they are creating a lot of shots. I suspect that that's going to start turning a little bit. I think I kind of agree with you. If I take a depth line out of this game, it would be that Sillinger line. I was really hoping you'd bring them up from Columbus. I wrote up Alex. I can't believe I did. I wrote up Alex Nylander in the picks article today. 18:28 was his ice time in the first game without Jack Rolozovic. So, even though he's on the quote third line, he's not going to get third line minutes. This isn't a guy that's going to play 13 minutes or whatever, like Tanner Pearson will for Montreal. Him and Cole Sillinger, 95 minutes together, 37.9 shots, 3.7 expected goals, 5.1 actual goals per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. Montreal's penalty kill is still not good. Columbus's power play, I was looking at the numbers with Bogfist and Werenski running the top unit. Everything is worse than either Werenski or either Bogfist. Fewer shot attempts, fewer shots, fewer expected goals, way fewer goals. Literally everything is worse. There's not one thing you can point to and say, this is why we're doing it. I don't know why they're doing it. I think actually one reason why they're doing it is they're giving up a lot of shorthanded goals against. Maybe that was Buffalo. Maybe I'm mixing them up.
It's definitely both of them.
Anyways. But yeah, I do like that Columbus third line as a filler. And you mentioned there's not a lot of ownership, 0.6% ownership, 0.8% or 0.8% ownership, 0.6% top two stack, basically even by leverage. And you don't get a lot of that for a team with a 3.2 total for a line under 12K where there are lines that you're going to need a filler that cheap for. So I do like Columbus 3 as a filler here tonight, but it is Montreal 1 that I like best in this game overall.
Yeah, and last week when Marchenko, Voronkov, and Chinnikov were a line, the Cole Sillinger line was still getting more minutes than them. So,
I mean, we have them listed as the third line in top stacks, and if you look at lineup sheets or beat writers, they'll have them listed as the third line. But it's the second line by ice time, and sometimes there are players that will get more ice time. Nylander might get more ice time overall than Chinnikov here tonight.
Yeah, Nylander he's good offensive. I don't know why he just doesn't stick for somebody. He would be a good middle six for a bet. Maybe he'll stick.
I was not high on him as a prospect. I've usually been impressed with him whenever I've been able to watch him at the NHL level. And considering how bad Pittsburgh's depth has been for 2 years now, I'm really surprised they let him go.
Yeah, me too. But maybe not, because Kyle Dubas is turning into an NPC. Pittsburgh Penguins with a 3.3 total heading into Ottawa. The Senators have a 3.2 total. How bad have the Senators been? This team in unbelievable spots against the Ducks and the Sharks. Flat tires. Just absolutely laid goose eggs. That's it's bad. I don't want to compare that to gooses. That's unfair to the goose. Like, they've been so bad. I don't even understand it. And now tonight, they get another pretty good matchup. Like, yeah, like Pittsburgh has Crosby. That's cool. Like, after that, like, it's a mess. Pittsburgh going Crosby, Rust, Bunting, Malkin, Riley Smith, Pustainen, then Rickard Rakell, Lars Eller, Emil Benstrom. Like, that's just not a great team. Ottawa going Kachuk, Pinto, Batherson, Stutzla, Giroux, Joseph, and then Grieg, Kubalik, and some guy I've never heard of. How Grieg isn't in the top 6 is a mystery to me. But
well, the problem is like where are you going to put him, right? Because if you put Batherson on the third line, like your entire bottom 6 is cooked. Like you just don't even play them. You can replace him with Matthew Joseph, but then who plays center? You know what I mean? Like they're kind of stuck.
But Grieg is playing wing tonight, and like that guy.
He's between Kubalik and Kachuk. Kachuk's not a center.
It's not Kachuk. Hold on. I'll tell you in 1 second. You can start talking about this game, and then I'll tell you. Wait.
Well, either way, it doesn't really matter. Here's the thing: is like these are going to be
Zach Ostapachuk.
Anyway,
third line center tonight.
Yeah, but even then, like who are you? Like if you move Batherson to the third line again, your bottom 6 is still cooked. Like they have Grieg down there because he's the only guy that might be able to give them a passable third line. Like
yeah, true. I mean,
he's kind of like a victim of his own success. You know what I mean? It's like, sorry, man. It's like, sorry, you're good. We need you to carry these AHLers. I wrote up Shane Pinto in the picks article because for all the problems that Ottawa's had, him and Kachuk have actually been pretty good together, right? Shane Pinto, last 7 games, 2 goals, 6 assists, 3.7 shots per game. Those were all losses by Ottawa. So he's over a point per game, 3.7 shots per game, despite Ottawa keeps losing. So he's been productive. Brady Tkachuk has largely been fine. 38 shots in his last 10 games. Hasn't been scoring a lot, but he's largely been fine. So like normally I wouldn't have a lot of interest in Ottawa here, but what I mentioned in the picks article is Pittsburgh's defense has been falling apart. I think that's a big reason why they've been on the slide that they've been on recently. 1 win in their last 7 games, 26 by expected goals against at 5-on-5, 27th by actual goals against. Their defense was actually fine for most of the season. It's really fallen apart over the last month. So I think Ottawa 1 is playable here. This is the problem. Is Ottawa 1 is 18,700 with 12% ownership. Pittsburgh 1 is cheaper with 4.9% ownership. So Ottawa's at 12%, Pittsburgh's at 5%, and Pittsburgh is the slightly cheaper line. And like I get what you're saying about there not being a lot for Crosby to play with, but 100 minutes for Crosby and Rust together without Jake Gensel. 3.7 expected goals, 3.0 actual goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5, all on the top power play unit, Bunting almost 19 minutes last game. This is a perfectly correlated top line with Sidney Crosby that is at 3 goals per 60 minutes of 5-on-5 at 5% against this Ottawa Senators team. I like Ottawa 1, but honestly, I have Pittsburgh graded higher, and they're coming in with a lot less ownership, and they're cheaper. I like Pittsburgh 1 best in this game. I think both Ottawa top 2 lines are perfectly fine to play. I'm not going to say don't play Ottawa because Pittsburgh is not a good team. But if you're going to give me the Crosby line at half the ownership, and they've been roughly as good as the Ottawa top line, again, at half the ownership, I'll take Pittsburgh. So Pitt 1, Ottawa 1, Ott 2 for me.
Yeah, I never finished my thoughts on that because I was going to find Zach Ostapachuk. But what I meant with the Crosby one, like there's nothing really there to like defensively that worries me. On the Pittsburgh side, I really do like the Crosby line here tonight, and it makes me very nervous because, yeah, Senators lay eggs, but so have Pittsburgh. But like, the Senators are so bad that like Crosby can, take them to the promised land. Hopefully. But at 5%, I'm willing to find out more than I would to find out if Shane Pinto is going to have a good game at 15% or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Whew. Sign up using the link in the chat box. Get access to the best NHL data and tools in the industry. You get player and ownership projections, top stacks tools, line combinations, and access to my OnlyFans where you see my fruity chest tattoo for $9.99 a month. No, not really. You get access to the premium Discord where you get access to Cliffy and I. Jake is always in there. We got a lot of sharp members willing to help you, and it's a good camaraderie. You can find out who to stack against if you ask Daily Deposit Frostback who his goalie is. But yeah, click the link in the chat or in the description below. I'm having a moment. I need to chew it over with some Twix. But yeah, thank you for the support again, and let's keep on moving. Let's go to the Sharks game. San Jose Sharks with a 2.3 total. Heading into Philadelphia, the Flyers have a 3.7. Whether you like him, whether you hate him, what Torts did on Saturday was hilarious. Refusing to, leave. Whatever, he got suspended. There's some good Flyers lines here tonight. Konechny, Forrester, Couturier, Tippett, Farabee, Frost. And they're coming in with less ownership than I expected them.
Should probably jump in. We have no idea what the Flyers lines are going to be.
Oh, I thought they practiced. I saw something in the Discord saying they practice those lines. That's not great.
I'll go double check, but I was watching a Flyers report, and they're not even sure who the scratches are going to be, let alone the lines.
Okay. That sucks. But maybe that's why there's not too much ownership there, because if Couturier and Konechny are there, I have a lot of interest in that line. The Sharks offer nothing in return. I have interest in the top six of the Flyers. I just need to see a decent line combination. Hoping Couturier and Konechny are together, I would imagine.
I will say those two stayed together the entire game when they got their brains beaten 7-0. So I think it's a fair bet that at least they stay together.
That's the line I had the most interest in anyway. I think Tippett is a fine one-off. I think Farabee is a fine one-off. I'm interested in Couturier, Konechny. Maybe their ownership comes up, but if Forrester's there with them, they're only $16K. Maybe they lower the line. I'm not sure. I'm sure Tortorella is still calling the shots from, the owner's box. On the Sharks side, I just don't have a ton of interest here at all. Like, I know Urson's been bad, and if you happen to get Granlund, Zetterlund, Barabanov, or whomever the top line is in your crunches, fine. Like, I'm not going to run out and go delete them. You know what I mean? But, like, in single entry or 3-max, I would much rather play Buffalo 3. I'd much rather play Columbus 3 than this Sharks line. So, really, I don't have a ton of interest in the Sharks.
So I'm looking at a tweet from Jordan Hall of NBC Sports. Atkinson and Delorier look to be the scratches. Tortorella said Gurianov is going to get a look in the lineup, and Bobby Brink could be back, but they might be going 11-7. So
Bobby Brink could be back.
Again, I assume Couturier and Konechny stay together, but we really don't know what the Flyers lines are going to be like. All I'll say, it's whatever line Couturier and Konechny are on is the line that I want. I was looking at their sample with Farabee because that's who they finished the game with. With Farabee, 3.2 expected goals, 3.8 actual goals per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. Bad defensive numbers because I don't think Farabee's that good defensively, but very, very good offensive numbers. I don't have any interest in San Jose since we don't really know what the Flyers lines are going to be. It's hard to say what to play on the Flyers. All I will say is whatever line Couturier and Konechny are on, whether it's with Forrester, whether it's Farabee or Tippett or Brink, or I really don't care, especially with Nick Delorier scratch. We know it's not going to be Nick Delorier. Literally whoever's on the other wing is the line that I have the most interest in. You want to one-off Owen Tippett. Owen Tippett is one-offable every single game. I really like Couturier and Konechny in this matchup because there's no matchups on the San Jose side that you're particularly worried about. I actually think it's not a bad night for or Travis Konechny to go get his 6th shorthanded goal.
There you go. I mean, I do like the Flyers a lot here tonight. And the uncertainty of the lines could make it even nicer with maybe the ownership comes in a little bit lower than expected. Florida Panthers with a 3 total heading into Dallas. The Stars have a 3 total. It's not too outlandish to say that this could be a Stanley Cup preview. Like, it's possible. Will it happen? I don't know. But like, these are 2 very, very good teams. Looks like Tarasenko has found himself there, which is nice. Tarasenko on a line with Barkov and Reinhart, Tkachuk, Verhaeghe, Bennett. And then I posted on the third line, Lusteran and Lundell, because Erod was not skating this morning. I am surprised that these teams have a 3 total and Detroit has a higher total. I like the Florida side here. Like, these Dallas lines are not great defensively. Hintz, Robertson, Pavelski, Duchesne, Marchman, Steele. Like, I do like the Johnson, Stankov, and Ben line, but like, they're not going to be great defensively. I kind of like going to Florida too here. Tkachuk, Verhaeghe, Bennett at 20,100, 1.3% projected ownership. The Barkov line's coming in even less. But if you're going to give me Tkachuk against Duchesne or, Ben, I'm in on Florida too. I think you can consider them in 1 to 3. I like that there's no ownership there. I like Florida here. On the Dallas side, like, this is just a tough matchup for DFS purposes. Maybe going back to the Johnson, Stankov, and Ben line would be the play for me. But like, in terms of like a $14,000 or less lines, there's others that I like. If they get into your crunches, so be it. It's one of those things. But like, I do like Florida too here tonight.
Yeah. The one line I like in this game is actually Florida 1. Reinhart, Barkov, Tarasenko. The only reason for that is that they're probably going to see the Pavelski line, and they're like the Pavelski, Hintz, Robertson line, and that line has just not been good defensively since the All-Star break. 60 shot attempts against per 60, 3.4 actual goals against per 60. Like, they're really giving up quite a bit. Here's the problem: Chris Tanev being added to that blue line is pretty massive for Dallas, because the problem was they had Harley and Heiskanen together, and that line, and that they've just been dominant. 1.8 expected goals against, 2.1 actual goals against per 60 at 5-on-5 since the All-Star break together. Like, they've just been dominant. They just didn't have anybody else on the second pair to put with Esa Lindell, and Esa Lindell is a great defensive defenseman. Chris Tanev is also a great defensive defenseman. That's kind of the problem, is I think adding Tanev finally gives them 2 great defensive pairs that they can basically just run out there against Florida's top 6 at all times, right? That's kind of the issue that I'm running into here, is that if this were 2 weeks ago, I would probably be playing Florida too. Now, just that one defenseman, I think, makes a very big difference for the entire outlook, because now you're hoping you can catch the bottom pair on the ice at some point. Like, that's basically it. And Dallas doesn't take a lot of penalties. Their penalty kill is generally very good. Now, Reinhart, Barkov, Tarasenko, they've been able to do well offensively, no matter who the third winger is, whether it was Evan Rodriguez, Carter Verhaeghe, and I think Eetu Luostarinen had a game or 2 up there or something. Maybe it was him or Lundell. I can't quite remember. But either way, like, it hasn't really mattered. Tarasenko, he's a black hole defensively. I think they're good enough defensively to carry him, especially on the blue line. And he's going to help a lot offensively. So where they're going to get, I think the worst defensive line that Dallas has is the top line. And where they're going to see that matchup, I think it's Florida 1. But I'm going to be honest, like, with Tanev there now, like, I do think he'll make a very, very big difference for the defensive numbers, especially if the second and third lines moving forward. And he's made a pretty big difference already. Like, Dallas has had an easy schedule since they got him. Like, that's kind of the problem. San Jose and Los Angeles, like, that's not really a murderer's row. So we'll see how they do here tonight, but I think it will make a pretty big difference. And for that reason, like, I don't have a lot of interest in stacking either side. I will say Reinhart, Barkov, Tarasenko is the line that I would go to. I think they're in the best matchup. I think it's a pretty bad matchup on both sides. Florida does take a lot of penalties, and Dallas is very efficient on the power play. That's the one thing I will say, and that's the one reason why I wouldn't hate going to Johnston, Stankov, and Ben. They're all either on one power play or the other. They might get a lot of opportunities here tonight. I just think there are other filler stacks I'd rather go to. So Florida 1, Dallas 3, but I won't be like in my single entries. I won't be taking a line out of this game.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, like Lindell Tanev is pretty miserable to go against. Didn't really consider that bigly. Have to go back and revise that. Arizona Coyotes with a 2.7 total heading into Minnesota. The Wild have a 3.7 total. Arizona Lions, they always announce it differently than they are. Like Keller was with Genther and Cooley, and then like 2 shifts into the game, it was Keller, Schmaltz, and Hayton for the rest of the game.
Hayton's out tonight.
Now Hayton's out tonight, and like Kerfoot going to move up, Cooley going to move up. We didn't get lines, did we?
No.
Let me look.
No.
I don't have a ton of interest in Arizona as it is. The line that I obviously have interest in is Minnesota 1. Kaprizov, Eriksson, Ek, Boldy. They have a 30.8% top 2 stack. It's even higher than Colorado 1 here tonight. 14.3% projected ownership. That's fairly high positive leverage. There isn't truly a matchup that concerns me. Like they're going to take top comp. And if it is Bukestad, Michelli, and Krause, that might end up being the top comp because I was tilted the other day because I bet some goals on that line against Chicago, and the Dickinson line went out against that line. So I would imagine Joe Eriksson X sees some of the Bukestad line, maybe some of the Keller line, whatever that is. Either way, they are not tasked to be defensive anymore. They are tasked to score goals. And Arizona takes a ton of penalties. Their penalty kill's bad. It is Vejmelka in net. He's had a pretty brutal season. I'm very much in on Minnesota 1. You want to go to Minnesota 2, Zuccarello on the top power play, that's fine. Rossi, Hartman, Zuccarello 14-9. Kind of a little bit more expensive than filler-ish. But they should see pretty good 5-on-5 matchups. It is one of those things, though, like, do you really want to stack Minnesota without Kaprizov? I'm not sure in one lineup you want to do that. If you happen to do it in MME, I think that's fine. On the Arizona side, we'll have to wait and see on lines again. But if Krause, Michelli, and Bukestad are together, I would have a little interest in that in MME.
I think the one line from Arizona that I would kind of have interest in would be if they put Logan Cooley up there. I just don't like Alex Kerfoot just doesn't do anything for me. Like Nick Bukestad's fine, but I don't think he's a difference maker. Like he's kind of like just a Alex Kerfoot with a different name. That's kind of the way that I look at it. Like Logan Cooley, I wrote about him at a different website. Like the last couple months, his playmaking and his transition numbers have all increased quite a bit, and I think he can help the wingers score. We just don't know how the lines are going to work out, and like basically you're banking on Arizona getting there on the power play. Minnesota's penalty kill is very bad, but at 5-on-5, it's still a pretty tough matchup. So like I'm kind of with you. I don't have a lot of interest in Arizona. This is a Minnesota game. For me, Minnesota, number 1, top 2 stack percentage on the slate, 30.8%, 14.3% ownership. I wrote up Matt Boldy in the picks article. This is arguably the best power play spot on the entire slate. Arizona takes a ton of penalties. They're very bad at killing them off. All 3 guys on the top power play unit. Minnesota 1 just grades out as I think it's my number 2 line on the entire slate behind Colorado. Matchup agnostic. To me, this like I don't know where else to go besides Minnesota 1. I'm not confident because I think they said Adam Beckman is out and Marcus Johansson's back tonight, and I'm not entirely confident that the Minnesota depth is going to stay together. So like I don't even know where I would go for like a filler stack because that's going to be late announcing. So like for me, it's Minnesota 1 or bust, and it is a tremendous power play matchup for the Wild. What I mentioned in the article about Matt Boldy, 8 of 24, 8 of 20. Boldy has 8 power play points out of his 24 in his last 22 games. And Minnesota has 22 power play goals in their last 22 games, while Arizona has given up 24 in their last 23 all over the last 8 weeks. Like Minnesota's power play is flying. Arizona's penalty kill is floundering. Minnesota draws a lot of power plays. Arizona gives up a lot of power plays. Like this is a very, very, very good spot for the Minnesota top line. I really like them here tonight.
Yeah.
Apparently,
if you're going to spend up, it's really between Minnesota and Colorado, I think. And, you can try building and see what happens. Anaheim Duckies with a 3 total. Heading into Chicago, the Hawks have a 3 total. We found a chalk line that makes me very, very nervous, and that's Chicago 1. Bedard, Kurashev, Foligno, 15,000, 6.9% top 2 stack. How do you not stack them now? 16.7% projected ownership. Higher ownership than Minnesota 1. They probably almost fit with Minnesota 1 if you start punting after that. But, this is a very good power play spot. Nick Foligno does nothing for me 5-on-5. But this is a good power play spot. He is good net front. He's kind of like Corey Perry for Tampa a few seasons ago. I'm not talking myself into playing full Chicago 1 here tonight in single entry, but I think they are honestly fine. If you want to eat the ownership, I think it's fine because the power play matchup is probably the second best on the night. And Chicago's power play has actually been pretty good, which is weird. I don't know. Seth Jones has been good. So I think Chicago 1's fine. They're fully correlated. The ownership is the issue to me. I have a hard time wrapping my head around playing, Nick Foligno at that ownership. I think it's fine. Andres Anthony is going to be back in for Zach Sanford here tonight. If he's on a line with Taylor Radish and Tyler Johnson, I almost don't even mind them as a filler for Colorado, to fit them in with Colorado, just because the Ducks depth is atrocious and they're going to avoid the good ass pairing probably. So don't even mind that. But it is Chicago 1 that I do like the most in this on the Chicago side. On the Ducks side, I have some interesting options here because it's just a matter of who you think the Dickinson line is going to take. You know what I mean? If they take the McTavish line, I have interest in the Strome line. If you think they're going to take the Strome line, I have interest in the McTavish line. I hope they take the McTavish line because I have more interest in Vetrano, Terry, Strome. I still think they're fine at 3.1% projected ownership at 16.8. It's just, it's not the best power play spot. Not that you stack the Ducks for the power play. So I do have a little interest on the Ducks side, but it is honestly Chicago 1 is my fair line in this game. And if we're being honest, it leaves a taste of diarrhea in my mouth.
I wrote up Connor Bedard in the picks article. Last time I wrote Connor Bedard, I think he had a goose egg. So hopefully he does a little bit better than that tonight. Anaheim is bottom 5 by expected goals against per 60, actual goals against per 60 since the All-Star break. No Leo Carlson, I think, is a big loss. They do. Isaac Lunderstrom's fine, but they don't really have a center that can replace what Carlson does defensively. And Anaheim 4.5 minor penalties taken per game since the All-Star, or over the last 8 weeks, going back into January. Second most of any team in the league. 23 power play goals allowed in their last 20 games. That is absolutely abysmal. Chicago's top power play unit, 11.7 goals per 60. It's just been really good. I will say they're riding a bit hot. Maybe that's what you can hang your hat on. But yeah, the ownership is just out of control. 16%.
It's just bonkers.
It is crazy. And like, I actually, while you're talking, you can, if you play Magnus Corona from San Jose, because he's only 6,900 on DK, you can actually get away if you want to play Jacob Markstrom at 7,100 at home to Colorado. But either way, if you play one of those goalies, you can fit Chicago 1 and Minnesota 1 together. You have to punt both your defensemen, but that's usually the case anyway. A Chicago 1's fine. You just have to decide if you want to play them at 15 to 20% on a slate this big. I think Dickinson's going to go out against the Vetrano line, so I'm out on the Vetrano line. Max Jones is also going to be out for Anaheim here tonight, and I don't suspect we're going to get lines until warm-up. So, like, Killorn and McTavish, I guess, is a fine two-man because they're going to get the Bedard line or they're going to get the third line from Chicago. Like, those lines are awful defensively. They're probably not going to be on the same power play unit together. Maybe we'll see because they might move things around with Max Jones out because Max Jones was actually on one of the power play. Like, oh my God, what are we talking about here? Yeah. So I think like a McTavish Killorn two-man is honestly my favorite thing on the Anaheim side because I don't want anything to do with that Jason Dickinson shutdown matchup. Chicago's pretty good on the penalty kill and doesn't take a lot of penalties anyway. So I think it's McTavish and Killorn. And, McTavish and Killorn, 2.5 expected goals per 60. Like, that's actually better than Vetrano and Terry, believe it or not. So at least there's something there. But it's the Chicago side that I like best in this game. I can't figure out if I want to play them with all that ownership or not. At the other side, by the same token, it's like, if they're going to have a big game, doesn't it seem like tonight should probably be one of the games where they do it? You know what I mean? I guess we'll find out. Chicago 1, Mason McTavish line, but definitely Chicago that I like best.
With Max Jones out, like, who moves up? Like Leeson, Ben Myers, Jakob Silfverberg.
Hey man, Brett Leeson got me to a cash a couple weeks ago, so I'm not playing Brett Leeson here tonight.
If Donato was on Chicago 1, I would be completely fine with that ownership. But like, clicking in a 17% Nick Foligno makes me want to schedule a CAT scan. Colorado Avalanche with a 3.6 total. Heading into Calgary, the Flames have a 2.9 total. Arturi Lehkonen is out. He's sick. Valery Nichushkin going to move up to the top line, top power play. That makes Colorado 1 25,900 fully correlated. I still think they're a good play. Just because Calgary traded their 3 best penalty killers. Who's killing penalties for this team? They have so many injuries. Like, yeah, Backlund's still there. Coleman's still there. But, like, they don't have great penalty killing defensemen. And I do really like Colorado 1. And there are lines that you can fit them with, like, where you don't have to, like, go play Matt Rempe. You know what I mean? Well, he's going to be out anyway, but, like, you know what I mean? Like, you can actually have a competent line with them and still have, like, non-min price defensemen. So I'm very much in on Colorado 1 here. Obviously, I think for the salary reasons and the power play matchup, I will prefer Minnesota 1. But, like, this is a much better power play spot than it was 3 weeks ago. It makes me nervous because, like, obviously Colorado can absolutely blow open a slate. It's just a matter of finding, like, a cheap filler line that fits with them. I'm fine with Colorado 1 here. On the Calgary side, like, I kind of wanted to get behind Calgary here a little bit, but these lines are just not anything that I can do. Like, one-offing Kadri, fine, whatever. One-offing Coleman, one-offing Backlund, one-offing Mangiapane. But, like, there's nothing that I want a full stack from Calgary here. So it is really, like, Colorado 1 for me.
Yeah, I just saw the recent top stacks run. Colorado 1 overtook Minnesota for top stack with Nichushkin on the top line. But again, they're also 25,900. I can't spend that. I can't spend over half my salary on one line. Like, that's just not something that I can do. People want to do that. That's fine. They're going to get the back of the line. Back of the lines, like their defensive numbers have actually been sliding since the All-Star break. I got to wonder if it's because they are taking a lot more shutdown matchups with Elias Lindholm gone. Like he'd been gone. He got traded before the All-Star break. So like I'm wondering if that's part of it. Colorado typically doesn't do as well on the road as at home. That's certainly the case for a lot of teams. Nathan McKinnon's so far this season. Obviously, he's been good no matter what. But at home, he's over 2 points per game. While on the road, he's closer to about 1.2. It has been a big, big difference. I'm not going to say don't play Colorado. Obviously, has anybody watched this team this season? Like they could go absolutely nuclear. I'm not a person that spends $25,900. The Colorado top line has been very good with Nichushkin there this year. 3.6 actual goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. They're certainly going to skate over 20 minutes here tonight. I just think it's just way, way, way too expensive to pay up that much. I kind of almost would rather prefer like a Drouin Middlestat 2-man or something like that. Go up against that Kadri line. Go up against that Huberdeau line. We know Middlestat is a really good playmaker. Unfortunately, Drouin is too. You'd like to get a good goal scorer on that line. But I'd rather take the cheap guys and attack the middle six, go get a goal at 5-on-5 or something like that, than have to rely on getting like 5 goals from this Colorado top line on the road. Like it's just too much. On the Calgary side, I agree with you. I think the one-off Kadri play is just fine. The Huberdeau line, like Huberdeau, Sharangovich, Kuzmenko, perfectly correlated on the power play. 2.8 expected goals per 60 minutes together this season. Not getting a ton of ownership. 1.2%, 0.7% top 2 stack percentage. I honestly don't mind them as a filler here tonight. Sharangovich, Huberdeau, Kuzmenko, especially where they're perfectly correlated. So I guess they're fine. Like I do like Colorado 1 a lot. I just don't think they're worth $25,900 here tonight.
Yeah, and if you are interested in stacking that correlated Calgary line, Miramonov is running that power play, but we will get to defensemen at the end. Let's talk about this last game here. Vegas Golden Knights with a 3.2 total heading into Seattle. The Kraken have a 2.7. I just don't particularly like Kraken games.
I like Kraken beers.
Yeah, Kraken beers, much better than watching Kraken hockey. I do not like stacking against Seattle, and I don't like stacking Seattle. So, this game is kind of meh for me. Like, if you want to go to Eichel, Marchessault, Barbashev, I think that's fine. They're more of an MME type deal. They do have a high total for the road. Like, they have one of the higher road totals. Third highest on the night behind Colorado and Pittsburgh. Like, Seattle's just good. They're not great at anything. They're just good at everything. It's kind of, they're just boring. So I don't have a ton of interest in any of these Vegas lines. If I did have to stack a line, it would be Eichel, Marchessault, Barbashev. I don't mind Carlson, Dorofeyev, Amadio as a filler. Like they're 12-6. And that's something like I would be more open to in single entry or like MME, like 20 max. I don't think I'll play them in single entry, but like I'd much rather play a filler line in a tough matchup than an expensive line in a tough matchup, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if my brain is explaining that properly, but like I think I view Eichel more as an MME. I'd maybe even like one off Dorofeyev or one off Amadio in my single entry if I had to, like, you know what I mean? So, and then on the Seattle side, it would be that Bjorkstrand, Tolvanen, and Gord line. But they're coming in at 6.2% projected ownership at 1.7% top 2 stack. Like they're 11-8. I'd rather just go play that Columbus line, which is honestly insane coming out of my mouth right now. But like I would. So I don't love this game, but I think you can take some pieces from this game in MMA.
Yeah, the only Vegas line that I agree with you. Like, if I were to play Vegas here tonight, I wouldn't stack the expensive guys. Like, I think, Eichel, Marchessault, Barbashev is fine to play. They're coming in with positive leverage. They're not super expensive. Like, if you want to avoid a super chalky Montreal or a super chalky Ottawa 1 or something like that, like, I think they're fine. But Carlson and Dorofeyev actually have good numbers together this season. They're up to almost 140 minutes together, 2.9 expected goals, 4.4 actual goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. Vince Dunn's out for Seattle. That does hurt their defense quite a bit. I guess they're fine as a filler stack. They're not one of my targets as a filler stack, but that Carlson, Dorofeyev, and Mario line I think is fine as a filler here tonight. On the Seattle side, oh my God. Tatar, Beniers, Everly, I don't know why they ever broke this line up. They have been very, very good at all times. 3.2 expected goals per 60, 4.2 actual goals. Like, this is a Seattle line that is actually scoring. Everly has 32 shots in his last 10 games. Sometimes they take top line matchups, sometimes they don't. There's no real matchup on the Vegas side where I'd be like, oh my God, I have to avoid them, or oh my God, I want to attack them. They're basically kind of all the same for me. 10,800, they're coming in over leveraged. But at 10,800, like, that is on the cheaper end of the filler stacks that you can put with a Colorado or something like that. But I think this is kind of like the Rangers-Carolina game where I think it's going to end up like 3-1 with an empty netter or something like that. Maybe one guy has a goal and an assist, and he'll be fine as a one-off, but I don't think I'm stacking anything out of this one.
Yeah, I mean, this game sucks as the late night hammer, but at least it's not the Sharks. They'll end our night at 7 p.m. Eastern. Love this slate. Let's talk before we talk about Los Defensemen coming up after us, the NBA Deeper Dive at 5:30 p.m. with Josh Engelman and DK DFS. I'm sorry, that's how it is in the schedule. I don't know your name. 6:30 p.m. Eastern, NBA Live Before Lock with Greg Ehrenberg and Eric Lindquist, who caddied at Iowa State. What a job. 7:30 p.m. Eastern, playback, live stream NBA Watch Along with, I think it was with Engelman and Ehrenberg. That's actually a pretty cool show. If you want to watch it, if you play NBA, they talk strategy, late swap while the NBA games are on in the background. It's pretty cool. But yeah, if you're NBAing, not sure why you would be, but if you are, stick around for that. NBA is an unbelievable grind. And if you do it on the daily, stick tap. Let's talk about defensemen here. The top of the board, Cale Makar, Rasmus Dahlin, Shea Theodore, Zach Werenski, Mackenzie Weegar. I think the two for me at the top range are Makar and Weegar. The thing is, I don't think there is a huge need to spend up for defensemen here tonight. I don't really love the top range. I do like Makar and Weegar, obviously. But, like, honestly, like, the mid-range and the cheap guys are where I'm living tonight. Who you liking?
Yeah, top three for me are Dahlin, Weegar, and Makar. In that order. I really do like the spot for Dahlin. Like, they're just playing him and Byram a ton. The problem with Dahlin is, like, Byram is half the price, right? And they're both power play one. They're both going to play around 25 minutes. Like, that's just kind of the issue, right? Maybe it'll take a lot of ownership off of Dahlin.
It will
in some contests. So there's kind of like that game theory aspect to it. Like, people are going to play Byram. Maybe I play the more expensive Dahlin, because then if Dahlin goes off, I'll be the only one. And maybe play them both. I think is a double defense stack for that. Like, Detroit sucks, man.
They're
so bad, especially without Dylan Larkin. So, Dahlin, Weegar, and Makar. I think this is a good night for, like, Mackenzie Weegar has been playing 25 minutes a game since Tanev left. This feels like a good night for him to really rack up the peripherals. So I think he's a better play on DK than FD. The mid-price range, like Brock Faber at the top with a bullet, considering the matchup against Arizona.
Good price too.
Yeah, Travis Sanheim for Philadelphia. Like, he's in tonight with all the injuries and everything on the blue line. He's gonna have to play a lot of minutes. Like, him and Yam Cork are both fine, but I think I'd rather play Sanheim here tonight.
Sanheim played 28 minutes in a 7-0 loss.
There you go. Chris Letang, I mean, whatever we think of Pittsburgh, Ottawa is similarly bad. And, the Ottawa penalty kill is not terrible. So I think Pittsburgh gets there. It's at 5-on-5. Don't mind Letang. Seth Jones, obviously, running the power play for Chicago. There are a lot of cheap guys, like mentioned Bowen Byram. Like, I wonder if Byram doesn't end up the most highest owned player on the slate here tonight.
He might, yeah.
Especially in like 80-man single entries or something like that. Olin Zellweger for Anaheim, running the power play. He's cheap. Artem Zub, love the Zub. Oliver Shillington, been playing more minutes, been inconsistent minutes, but has been playing more minutes generally for Calgary. A lot of cheap guys to like. With Aaron Ekblad out for Florida, Josh Mahura's in. He's stone min price, $2,500. Danil Miramanoff, you mentioned him for Vegas, or not Vegas, Calgary, running the top power play now. He's only $2,600. The Borg, Willie Borgen, he's might have to play some minutes here with Vince Dunn out. And I'll mention Mike Kesselring for Arizona. Like, Arizona traded Matt Dumba and they traded Troy Stetcher. They only have so many defensemen to turn to. Don't mind Kesselring if you need a $2,600 defenseman here tonight.
Yeah, there are a lot of defensemen in that range. Like, it's just spending up is honestly contrarian. I think, spending up for if you have, I don't think you need to force Rasmus Dahlin into your lineup, but like if you're in that range, I think he makes an excellent GPP play tonight. I do agree with that. Let's talk about some goalies. Scott Urson, top of the board, but no, the top of the board is kind of scary. I don't even know like who I'd spend up for. It would probably be Ottinger or Kochetkov, but like none of these top range goalies really excite me. I think Aiden Hill or Logan Thompson, whoever starts there, is fine. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen at 7,800. I like. For the cheap guys, I think it would be Bob, honestly. As Bobby as that sound. But honestly, Igor Shesterkin, 7,200, sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, I wrote up Igor. He's in Carolina. He's been playing extremely well. Rangers have been giving up shots at 5-on-5. That feels like a good night for Igor to really pull through. I like him for cheap. Mention Chrono Trigger, Magnus Krona for San Jose. 6,900 against the Flyers. Flyers, like, they've been on a bit of a slide and their power play sucks. Like, if San Jose can kind of hold them off a little bit at 5-on-5, don't mind him if you need a really, really cheap goalie. I have Aiden Hill because I'm not worried about Seattle at all without Vince Dunn in the lineup. I think I'm on the other side of the Florida-Dallas game. I think I'd rather play Ottinger here tonight just because Dallas doesn't take a lot of penalties. And that's sometimes where Ottinger has been getting into trouble. Dallas, generally speaking, is allowing power play goals against. But I'm going to be honest. I think this is a really good night for cheap goalies. I do like Krona. I do like Shesterkin. Bobrovsky's definitely playable against Dallas. Don't get me wrong. Vejmelka going up against Minnesota. I'm not playing Vejmelka. Minnesota's not that great of a team either. So I think there are a lot of cheap goalies on the DK board tonight that I like here, or that I would play anyway.
Yeah, I even think I'd play Philip Grubauer too. Like, Seattle's a good defensive team, so I don't know, man. Like, there's a lot of cheap guys I'd consider. The top end, not super great. Magnus Krona went 32-33 against the Senators. It's not like he's just an auto 6 goals against, you know what I mean? So don't mind. Anytime you get a goalie under 7K, doesn't matter the name, as long as he gets the volume, he's playable. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
I'm going way off the board and real spicy here tonight. I'm going Alex Killorn.
Wow. Whew. I'm not a Killorn guy, but woo. I'm going off the board too, and it's not really like wildly off the board. It is a top line player, and no, it's not Nick Foligno. I'm going Michael Bunting.
Oh, I like it. I try to watch the Habs when they're because I get the games here locally. I think I'm gonna have to watch that Pittsburgh-Ottawa game, kind of in the way like if there's an icy hill and you see one car after another coming over the hill and they can't stop. I think that's gonna be like watching the Pittsburgh-Ottawa game tonight, and I won't be able to turn it off.
This is gonna be a car crash. Yes, I will probably be watching that game too. wherever I can find it. We will be back on Thursday. We're Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday this week. Thank you, NHL schedule. We're Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday for the next few weeks just because the NHL schedule is a gong show. But yeah, good luck, everybody, tonight. Thank you for the support. I don't know what I'm saying. So good luck, everybody. We'll see you on Thursday.
Good luck tonight, everybody.